growing scandal involving Prince Harry and his last remaining genuine charity project, the Invictus Games. But is it really a charity project at all?
Australia has done a U-turn. They had previously cut funding for the Invictus Games, but now veteran Backlash has forced them to bring it back.
Harry's heartbreak as the showbiz elite dump the Sussexes.
The failure of As Ever is simply impossible to ignore, and more people are picking up on this.
I think that will be the beginning of the end for Meghan as a public figure, because this is a man that she's abandoned. Just awful. It will be shame on you, Meghan.
Invictus Games, 4 wounded warriors, which sounds like the Wounded Warrior Games. And people think, oh, this must be great. And a lot of people are unclear how to read a tax return or to check stats. And so I think it was just very easy to say, oh, the Invictus Games, it's great. It does all this. And then, you start looking into it and you're like, hey, what the heck is going on here? Those 535 competitors had to pay their own way. They had to pay their own housing for the games. They had to pay for their own equipment.
The controversy surrounding the Invictus Games has grown louder as critics question the contrast between the sacrifices of the competitors and the spending surrounding the event. Reports claim that some wounded veterans covered their own travel costs, accommodation, and equipment, while high-profile attendees enjoyed premium arrangements. That contrast has become the center of the anger, especially among those who believe the focus should remain entirely on the servicemen and women the event was created to support. By the end of this story, the question becomes not just about money, but about trust, loyalty, and why even members of Prince Harry's own family
really was the fact, again, that this is, I think, where Harry is struggling. I think he felt that his presence just turning up, and this has been the problem almost now with Invictus for the last few years, that, Markle turning up in Canada, rushing in at the last minute saying, oh, I've been busy doing packed lunches. It's just focus about them. I think people are fed up with the way that it's looking in Invictus. And I know this talking to some senior people there, they're just thinking, well, where has this gone wrong? Saying they'd like His Majesty the King, the Royals, etc., Invictus, Birmingham. And recently they put out something about some sponsor and all of that, because it's flagging, let's be honest. Invictus Birmingham, I wish them all the best, I genuinely do, but this country right now, we're just running out of money at the rate of knots. And it's all down to the government, whichever way you want to say it, it's down to bad spending and bad chancellorship, which is Rachel Reeves.
There is a petition circulating right now with one singular, uncompromising demand. And it is not asking for a routine review, a corporate restructure, or the kind of greater transparency that public relations teams use to quiet a news cycle. It is demanding that Prince Harry be completely removed from the Invictus Games, not quietly phased out, not transitioned into an advisory role while new leadership takes operational control, but completely severed from the very institution he helped build. What makes this move so difficult to dismiss is not the volume of the noise, but the identity of the voices driving it. They are not framing this as an attack on wounded veterans, but as an absolute defense of them, arguing that the organization and the heroes it serves would be fundamentally better off without the Sussex brand attached to it. If you value deep, objective analysis that looks past the tabloid headlines and dives straight into the institutional reality of stories like this, taking a moment to hit the like button helps this channel immensely. Ensuring this breakdown reaches those who want a calm, rigorous look at the facts. Because as we pull back the curtain on the financial machinery driving these events, the narrative moves from mere public controversy into a much more serious conversation about money, metrics, and institutional survival. To understand why this crisis has reached a boiling point, we have to look past the speeches and look directly at the ledger, starting with the Vancouver Whistler Games. On the surface, the numbers look like a triumph of international scale. 543 wounded and recovering service members representing 23 different countries, coming together for a genuinely inspiring display of human resilience. But then you look at the total cost of execution, a staggering 63.2 million Canadian dollars. When you break that down, it represents more than $118,000 spent per individual competitor. a figure that becomes profoundly complicated when placed alongside reports that many of these exact same veterans had to cover their own flights, pay out of pocket for their hotel rooms, and, in some cases, crowdfund their own specialized sporting equipment through personal networks. It forces a deeply uncomfortable question that is currently echoing through the veteran community. How does an event cost 6 figures per head to run, while the athletes themselves are left holding the bill? And this is where the first major open loop begins to form. Because while the athletes were navigating logistical hurdles, reports began to surface alleging that the organization's highest-profile figureheads were traveling via private aviation and staying in ultra-luxury, 5-star accommodations. When the wardrobe estimates for Meghan's public appearances at these events began circulating at figures climbing toward $180,000, critics pounced, though it is only fair to note that luxury wardrobe valuations are notoriously difficult to verify from the outside and should be approached with a healthy degree of analytical skepticism. But the undisputed cost-per-competitor figure remains, and it stands in stark, undeniable contrast to how similar military sporting events operate globally. Consider the American Warrior Games, which manages to execute its mission on a total budget of roughly $2 million, or the German equivalent, which coordinates a comparable international competition for approximately $200,000 while hosting half the number of participants. These multi-million-dollar discrepancies cannot easily be explained away by international prestige or production complexity. They demand a rigorous accounting of where the capital is flowing and whether it is truly serving the men and women at the heart of the mission. The deeper analysts dug into the public funding mechanisms, the more complex the picture became, particularly regarding the $15 million contributed by the Canadian federal government, paired with another $15 million from the province of British Columbia. This massive injection of taxpayer money was routed through a separate corporation, which then paid a highly specific licensing fee back to the British charity that owns the Invictus name, but the exact amount of that fee was completely redacted from public view. While a redaction does not inherently prove any form of financial impropriety, it naturally invites intense scrutiny. Because when public tax revenues are being used to fund an enterprise explicitly presented as a charitable endeavor, transparency regarding licensing costs is precisely what keeps the public's trust alive. That trust was tested further when the Invictus Games Foundation finally filed its annual accounts with the UK Charity Commission, revealing a set of data that sent immediate red flags through the nonprofit sector. In a single financial year, direct grants awarded to actual veteran organizations dropped by an astonishing 63.
I think this is the moment that she has finally realized everything's gone wrong and she can't spin it. From what I'm told, Meghan Markle has been going through multiple stages of grief over the Netflix deal. It started with denial. It moved to desperation to change the situation with Ted Sarandos. Then it was anger, and we know what she gets like when she's mad. And now it is complete devastation because to lose one major Hollywood streaming deal is bad enough, but for 2 to go, well, there's no return. Obviously, that's not how she's going to play things publicly and even amongst her private inner circle, because already Meghan is trying to now secure a new streaming deal for much less money with the far less successful Paramount Plus. And of course, to secure any deal like that, it means she'll have to pimp out so much more. But look, this deal axing has now been confirmed by the mainstream media. Today, in The Sun, Prince Harry and Meghan's £100 million deal with Netflix scrapped in a huge loss of revenue for the couple. I will just tell you, though, this is why you must never trust the mainstream media, who have been saying for months and months and months, no, the deal's going to re-sign. They've believed all of Meghan Markle's ludicrous claims to Emma Grede that Netflix is the best partner in the world. Let me just tell you, this is what I wrote, revealing this in June 2023. This is when I was still a columnist for the Daily Mail. That was the headline. Taylor Swift's brutal rejection of Meghan Markle's plea to appear on her podcast proves stars want proximity to real royals, not the bitter Sussexes. That's why I'm told Harry and the Desperate Duchess will be dropped by Netflix next. And my reporting at the time, so remember, June 2025, 2 years ago. Pete Diner, can you understand why even for Meghan, Ms. Confidence, this is a blow that is almost becoming too hard to comprehend? She doesn't know how to put the right face on this one.
Yeah, there really isn't anything that they can do at this point. I think this is the end of Harry and Meghan, and Harry is definitely feeling this in a very hard way, because this money is going to end. It has stopped. It is not going to be this happily ever after as they thought it would be. And I can only imagine how this is going to affect the marriage.